we have a whole program here by National Institute of Health, NIH, called I-Core, that basically force you to go and talk to your potential customers. But when you talk to your potential customers, it's a good idea to go and ask. But so when you get your new idea, you go and you talk to your friends, you talk to your friends' friends, and what you get back is opinions. People freely share their opinions about your great idea. But this is it. It's just opinions. It's not data. So Henry Ford once said, if I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would ask for a faster horse, right? Because, you know, if you have ideas, people give you back their opinions. So don't ask, collect real data. And I'll tell you how to do it. But first, couple of examples. So when I was in Palo Alto in the 90s and the internet just started to rise, there was a fantastic company called Webvan. Now, Webvan is now being taught in so many business schools as a great example, right? So the premise of the company was, we will deliver you groceries within 30 minutes to your door. You can order your groceries on the internet. At that time, it was absolutely novel idea, and we will bring it to your door. Great idea. They raised $122 million from Goldman Sachs and Sequoia Capital. In 1999, they went IPO. They launched simultaneously in 26 markets, 26 big cities. They had refrigerated warehouses. They had fleet of trucks. They had enormous infrastructure from the beginning. And so when they went to raise money, everyone thought it was a phenomenal idea, right? They raised, as I said, $122 million. So everyone said, great idea. But then in 2001, the company went bankrupt. So when they went and talked about it and people said it was a great idea without getting any data, we call it false positive. Now, you all know the company that also went to investors and tried to raise money, but was not successful. Everyone turned them down, and yet it's one of the biggest companies today on the market. So when Twitter tried to raise money, people just didn't get it. They said 140 characters, what? And now we know that Twitter is one of the largest companies on the market. So we call it false negative. So instead of going and asking for opinions, Alberto and I suggest that you collect data on your idea, and I'll teach you how. And instead of asking questions, you put together small actions to get that data. And instead of ideas, you turn out prototypes until one of them succeeds. So what is prototyping? Prototyping is basically validating the market with the smallest possible effort in investment or time to get actionable actual usage, the data of the usage. So prototyping is a new word, but it's not a new concept. And prototyping could be done not just with startups, but also with large companies. I'll give you one of my favorite examples of IBM. So IBM was in the market of a big mainframe machines. But in the 80s, they wanted to get into the market of personal computers. And at that time, they thought that the biggest barrier for them to get into the market of personal computers was the fact that people didn't know how to type. At that time, before personal computers made it into a household item, the only people that knew how to type were specially trained typists or writers. And so IBM decided to invest time and money into a product that will turn speech to text. So they went to their potential customers and they asked, would you buy this product for tens of thousands of dollars? And everyone they asked said, yes, what a great idea. Yes, we would. So IBM invited their potential customers to come in and test their new speech-to-text product. Customers came in, they were sitting in an isolated room in front of the screen with a microphone, and they would speak and the words would appear on the screen magically. So after testing it for a day, customers said, you know what? We reconsidered because too much noise, we're worried about confidentiality issues, our throats hurt after talking all day. So thanks, but no thanks. What customers didn't know at that time was that IBM actually didn't develop the product, but they had a typist sitting right next to that room behind the curtain, typing everything that the customer was saying, right? So they faked essentially the product to collect real data from potential customers that first said, yes, we would love it. And after testing the product said, no, there is no interest in this product on the market. So that was sort of the first example of Pretotype that IBM did in the 80s. So we called it a Pretendertype, but it actually is the first Pretotype example. So before Pretotype, everyone said the product was excellent, we would buy it. But after testing it, you can see the percentage of people that declined it. And IBM, by putting this exercise, IBM saved months, maybe years of work and millions of dollars. So as an entrepreneur, and I know it because I went through the same thing, Alberto knows it because he went through the same thing, we have a compulsion to continue on our idea at all costs. That's why I'm thinking back that I should have closed my company a year earlier. Alberto, with his second company, concedes that he should have closed it much earlier than running it for 5 years. So Pretotype gives you that technique where you can test things faster and not try to continue if you get data out of the market that this is the wrong idea. Okay. Another great example is the original Palm Pilot. So the inventor of the Palm Pilot, that for those of you who are too young to know what Palm Pilot is, it was before the cell phones. There was something called Palm Pilot that lets you collect people's information for the contact list, schedule events, and had a couple of other options. So the inventor of Palm Pilot actually invented a tablet years earlier that failed. And so before inventing the Palm Pilot, what he did, he took a block of wood, put a piece of paper on it, and carried it with him for 2 weeks as if it was a real product. And every time he would meet a person, he would take that block of wood out of his pocket and pretend that he would write that person's information or schedule it in a calendar. And that's how he figured out the 4 main functionalities that he would use it for, or people would use it for. So that's another sort of example of pretotyping technique that was used many years ago. So what is pretotyping? Pretotyping is a technique where you can test your idea in a matter of hours or days, as opposed to days or weeks with the prototyping. And the main question is, would we use it? Would the customers use it, as opposed to can we build it, as it is with the prototype? And the deliverable is the working prototype, as opposed to prototype. So let me go through a sampling of some techniques, and I'll give you more examples as we go. So one technique is called Mechanical Turk. If you guys know what Mechanical Turk is, so the Emperor of Austria was very much into gadgets at that time, and he was an avid chess player. And so someone gave him this machine, we're talking about 18th century. Someone gave him this big machine that can play chess with the emperor. What the emperor didn't know was that there was actually a person inside the machine that was using chess figures, right? So that's what IBM used in their example of Pretotype. That's the technique that you can use if you can make your product look like a product, without the functionality, with faking the functionality. That's the technique that's called mechanical Turk. Pinocchio prototype, I told you about the Palm Pilot. It's where you pretend there is a product and you sort of test its functionality. When Alberto was approached by Amazon about Alexa, whether he would invest into this product, what he did, he took a can of beans, he put a black paper around it, and he put it in his bedroom, and he pretended that that was a product. And every morning he would get up and he would ask, so what's the weather like today? Or, you know, whatever questions would come to his mind. And that's how he understood that he might use this product, right? It was a can of beans, but it made him think that that was a real product and what kind of functionality it will be used for. So that technique is called Pinocchio. The fake door, that's actually a very popular technique that a lot of you may already use or should think of using. And Alberto did it when he first wrote his book. He created a web page. It's so easy to create one web page. Zappos did it. I don't know if you're familiar with Zappos. It's a big company that started by selling sneakers. Now it sells everything, shoes, clothes, everything. But it started by advertising sneakers online with one web page. And when people would click on a picture of the sneakers, the founder of Zappos would drive to the store, would buy the sneakers, and would ship it to the customers. So he just had a web page to understand if there is a demand for this type of service. And that's how he collected real data. People actually would pay money on that web page for him to deliver the product. And that's how the company started. So that's one of the easiest probably techniques how to prototype your product. Another idea is to try your product in one location for a very short period of time. So Airbnb started like that, right? They rented one room with 3 air mattresses out just to test if people will be interested in that. And they rented it in Austin, Texas, and put it on a site where people can see, and voila, it was 2008. The economy was in shambles, and people actually used that. You know, before 2008, no one could have imagined that people will be renting their sofas to strangers, but they tested it and it worked, and now we have a service called Airbnb. So that's another technique that you can test in one place, one time, just to see if it works. Impersonator. So if you remember how company like Tesla started, Elon Musk took an existing car, a luxury car, Lotus, and he swapped an engine. He took out an engine and he put a fake engine, and he said that will be an electric car. Would you buy it? And he actually collected checks. He collected $5,000 checks from people who would say, yes, this is my deposit. I would love to have a car like this. So putting sort of a new wrapper on existing product is another way how you can try and see if the demand is there. Okay. So let me see if I can play this video. It's a little 3-minute video. I need to pre-phrase it by telling you that, so this is a design company in Palo Alto, and what they did is bordering on illegal. And I have to, you know, warn you that yes, this borders on illegal, don't try it at home, but it reinforces the idea that you can test your product. So the founder of this company went on eBay and purchased an IKEA shirt. You have IKEA in Kerala, right? You know what the store. So he purchased this shirt of the employee of IKEA, and he placed his product on a shelf there, and he videotaped what happened next. So let me play this video for you, and then we will talk about it on the other end.
Karina, the audio is not working, I guess. Karina, could you check whether the audio is?
All right. So I cut this a little short, but you got the point. So what did, by putting it in IKEA for a day, what did this company learn about their product? Well, so they learned many things. They learned the demographic, who picked it up and put it into their bag so that they're ready to spend money on it, right? Where there's women or men, was it in suburbia or in the city? You can answer so many so many questions with this exercise. And who lost during that exercise? IKEA lost, right? So if it was a real product, IKEA would get money for it. So if you have a consumer product, what I would suggest is maybe going to a smaller store and talking to a manager and saying, if I put it on a shelf and customers are interested in it, can we then split the revenue? So that would be probably less illegal and more prudent way of testing your product. But I thought that that example was really interesting, how they spent one weekend in IKEA seeing that customers actually needed that product. All right, moving on. Next example I want to show you. So there are many companies right now on the market that actually prototype their products first. One of them is Inside Square. It's a company that does analytical data for financial companies. And they started by doing Excel spreadsheet like this and sending it to potential customers. And then when they saw the traction, when customers were interested, they built the real infrastructure, the backend, and the real product the way it looks today. Another great example that I love is the company called Buffer. So Buffer allows you to schedule all your social media messages. So you can schedule it for specific date and time through Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. But before Buffer even started, what they did is what we call the fake door prototype. They created 3 web pages, and they basically explain on the first page what Buffer does. You choose your time to tweet, all your tweets buffer, and then they all released, and you can relax and watch it happen. And then they showed very important page, which I will show you in a second. But when customers clicked, they said, we're sorry you caught us before we're ready, but if you leave your information, we will let you know when we are ready. So obviously they're already collecting customer information through that. But the most important page that they put in between is this. They said, okay, how much would you pay for the service? And you can choose 3 different tiers. And that way they tested real customer data. What customers will pay for the service like that, right? So that's really important to not only test whether customers will use your product, but how much they would pay for it. So it used to be, as an entrepreneur, you would start thinking, how can I make money? And then how can I build it? And then you discover that no one wants it. So with the prototyping, we're basically putting it on its head. And the most important question here is, do they want it? Are they going to use it? And then if you see the reinforcement to this question that yes, they will, the second question comes, can we build it? And then you can figure out monetization strategy. Can we make money on it? Right? So the prototyping effect is pretty clear. You can try so many more new ideas if you do it quickly. And if they don't work, you pivot to the next idea until it succeeds. You have many more failures, but you have many more real successes. The percentage of success increases by many folds. So that's the effect of prototyping. Let's talk a little bit about the analytical side of it and how you can actually create a formula out of it. So the two most important things that you need to collect when you do your prototyping is two factors. One is the initial level of interest, and the second one is the ongoing level of interest, because customers might try something once, but are they going to continue to try it? So to test your initial level of interest, you basically take the percentage of the target group that you're targeting that you think might be interested in your product, and you divide it, and the people who actually tried it. And so the people who actually tried it, you divide it by people that you invited to try, and that's how you get your initial level of interest, or ILI, okay? And the next one is, yes. So an example of ILI, if you advertise your product to 1,000 people and 741 person tried it, your ILI is pretty high, right? All right, the next thing that you need to try and capture is ongoing level of interest. And ongoing level of interest is you take people who try it again and again, and you divide it by people who tried it once. And that's how you get your ongoing level of interest. And what you want to see, you want this level of interest to either go flat or continue to rise. What you don't want to see is the ongoing level of interest going down, okay? So let's use this and try to go through the example of WebVan to see how we would prototype it, to see if maybe we can make it successful. So before we blow $100 million, let's just come up with a series of questions that we want to answer through our prototyping technique. And these questions are, what percentage of people would use internet for groceries? How often will they use it? Would there be people in the big cities or suburbs? What kind of products would they buy? And what is the average dollar, or what is the average price point per transaction that they will use? All right, so to build this prototype, what I suggest we'll do, we build a really good glossy web page, because marketing at this point is really important. So we'll build a web page. We'll advertise in two markets, let's say in urban and suburban. And then when the orders will come in, we will not build infrastructure. We will have no backend. We will hire our friends and family. We will rent trucks, and we will go to the stores, buy this product, and deliver it to customers. And we'll run it for 4 weeks. And with this, we will collect real world data to see if anyone is actually interested, okay? So let's say we advertise it on a local radio to 10,000 people. And because we think it's a luxury product, let's say that our target audience we want to set to 5%. We want to capture 5% of that 10,000 people, and we will consider that a success. So if we did it, let's say we did it in San Francisco and Palo Alto, and we see that we capture 843 people, I would say it's a successful initial prototype. Let's keep on going. But as we go to the second week and the third week, we see that our ongoing level of interest diminishes, which gives us a clear indication that this product at this time might not work, okay? So why am I so excited about prototyping? Because I also think that it creates an easier way to raise funds. There are a lot of angel investors that are happy to invest, but it's very risky. So if you involve them in a dialogue, an initial dialogue of prototyping, you create an ally who is interested in your success. So you might go to your angel investor and say, instead of giving us, 50,000, give us 5, and we'll stage the first initial prototype. We'll run it for 2 weeks. We'll share all the data with you, and we will decide at the end how to proceed. And you might see that the results are really encouraging. And that way you're de-risking it for your angel investor to say, all right, keep investing and we'll keep on working on it. If you see the results are not encouraging, you might pivot. You might try a different solution for the problem you're trying to solve. And if it's ambiguous, you keep on prototyping. So here, usually I give audience a break, but because we don't want to take a break yet, and we're actually not far from the end, I want to run one practice with you, but for that, I want some interaction. So I'm hoping that either Akil or I think Akil will help me with your answers. So let's try to prototype. You all know McDonald's, right? Let's type to prototype a new product at McDonald's. And let's say McDonald's would want to put something called Mac Spaghetti on the menu. So it's an Italian spaghetti, but they want to put it on the menu. How would we go about prototyping this new product at McDonald's? So I want you to type your suggestions in the Q&A, and Akil, if you can read a couple of them to me. But sure. Let's say, yes, let's say we will put it on the menu. We will run it maybe in big city, again, in the suburbs to see where it will be a better fit. We'll keep it on the menu, let's say, for a week or 2 weeks. How would we go about testing it? Again, remember, prototyping is we don't spend any money on a new product. So the product does not exist. Anyone? So first we'll put it on the menu, right? I don't see your answers, but I will keep on talking. And if Akil, if you see any good suggestions, please read them out loud.
Yeah, there are some.
Okay, good. Then let me pause and see what people's ideas are.
It says you could buy spaghetti from elsewhere. Another one says free tasting. Third one is track the number of orders. The fourth one is purchase spaghetti and then wrap it in McDonald's wrap, and then photos, or then give them a coupon worth the amount. And then says walk-in. Yeah, there are so many just come in. Walk-in for walk-ins, give a complimentary spaghetti to some of the ordered dishes and try to understand the frequency of the consumption. And there it goes. That's the one which I have read it out to you, Irina.
Okay, so remember, with the prototype, we don't want to spend any money. So to train people to make this spaghetti would cost us money. So I would say there's no spaghetti at all. We put it on the menu, but we don't spend any money on buying it anywhere or doing anything. If person comes up and orders spaghetti, we would say, we're so sorry, dear customer. We're out of it today, but here is an extra order of French fries, right? And we keep track of how many people order it from the menu. So that's one thing.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So we don't have it. We don't train personnel to make it, but we keep track of how many people ask for it. But this is not the most important thing. We run it for, let's say, a week or two. What is the most important question that we should ask when people are ordering spaghetti? The most important question is, have you ordered this from us before? Because then you know that these people are really interested in this product, that there's ongoing level of interest, right? That this is not the first thing that they ask, that they keep being interested in this product. And so Alberto actually helped McDonald's to test it in 2 locations, and we don't have Mac Spaghetti in the United States because clearly it didn't work. But it just illustrates the idea how you can test it without any preparation very quickly to understand if there is attraction for this potential product. Okay. All right. So I want to go quickly through just a recap of the techniques. So one technique we didn't talk about is to create a video. If you remember how Dropbox started, they basically created a short video of how it might work. And that's how they went to investors with that short video. And that helped them to get traction and to get investment. You know, crowdfunding is an obvious way to prototype. However, with crowdfunding right now, you really need to spend money on a marketing campaign. So it becomes a very expensive prototyping. What's great about crowdfunding, you can see if people are ready to part with their money for the product. So, you know, if you're ready to do it, it's great, but just be aware of this extra cost. And I would suggest using other techniques when you don't spend money or much time before you go into crowdfunding. Okay. All right. So we're getting to the end, and now is one of like my favorite parts of this presentation. So in the late 80s, early 90s, when the internet just started, the very first incubator in the United States was called Idea Lab. It started in Los Angeles. It's actually started in 1996. And they incubated many early internet companies that became very successful. They actually incubated over 180 companies. And because they did it so early and so many, they could extract data and really analyze it. And so they came up, so this is the example of the companies that they incubated. They came up with 5 essential elements that leads to success. And the 5 essential elements for successful company were the original idea, team, business model or execution, funding, and timing. So 5 major ingredients. So how novel the idea is, what's the differentiation from the competition, how great and efficient is your team, what is your business model, the commercialization path, right? Funding, how easy it is to raise money for that idea, and timing. So now I want to pose a question to you, and Akhil, I think we have this poll. I want to ask you, dear audience, which one of these 5 ingredients is the most important? And if we can put poll up, I would love to see people voting. Thank you.
Yeah, friends, you can vote this. Yeah, you can start the poll. Yes.
Thank you. All right, we'll give it a few more seconds.
Yep.
All right, well, I gotta give great compliments to the audience, because usually when I do it, the most important one comes at the end, but you guys are almost right. So let me end this polling. 14% of you voted for team, 12% for timing. The least important in your list is funding. So let me end this polling and go into the big reveal here. I don't know why it's not working for me.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the most important out of 5 ingredients by far, as you can see, is timing. And it's also usually the one that you can least have control over, right? And then the second most important is team. The least important of 5 really important ingredients is the funding. So if we don't have control over timing, then prototyping becomes very useful, because with prototyping, you can test if your timing is right, okay? I'm not sure why I cannot progress. Here we go. So other factors that might be of interest to you, the biggest factor in failure was no market need. And again, prototyping answers that. Is there a market traction? Do people like this product? Would they use it? These are the questions that you can answer with prototyping, okay? And on that, I'm going to leave you. So Alberto wrote a book. You can read the prototyping book. There are videos available, and I am open for questions.
All right, all right. Thank you, Karina. That was 15 minutes of wonderful idea that you have presented on prototyping, and you've gone through the entire gamut of it. There are questions. So I'll start with a question on my side, and then I'll actually get the questions from others and read it out to you for you to answer. One question that I would like to know is that you do prototyping, and based on the input that you have received from prototyping, you go ahead and manufacture the product, or you go ahead and do your entrepreneurship. What is the guarantee, or what is the percentage guarantee of success of the same, Karina?
So with the prototyping, you're getting data that people are actually ready to buy your product. With the prototyping, the idea is that you're not only getting opinions, but you're getting actual data. People leave their emails, maybe people even write checks, right? Once you validate that, then you go into prototype, and then you build your minimum viable product. You don't build, you don't go to manufacture the entire line, right? You still use very agile approach. You build your prototype, you release it with few functionalities, and you build on it. But prototyping lets you test it very quickly just to see if you're on the right premise, if you're working on the right idea. I always tell entrepreneurs, don't fall in love with a solution, fall in love with the problem. Because if you fall in love with the problem, you can test many different solutions until you find the right one, right? And prototyping lets you do that quickly. So yes, prototyping, then prototype, then MVP, and then full manufacturing.
Right, that is a first step that you had suggested. Great. There is a question from Prajit Prabhakaran here. He wants to know, why is it so great? You know, isn't it a differentiated substitute for market survey using a questionnaire? That's a question that he asked.
So market surveys have their purpose, but again, with market surveys, you get opinions, right? People can give you freely their opinions, and that's your market survey. Would they actually spend money on this product? You know, remember with IBM, customers gave free opinions. Yeah, we would love that. But when it actually came to testing, using, spending money on it, the results were very different. So if you can find a way to, and I use the word fake, but if you can find a way to pretend the usage of the product to get real data, it will give you more information than any market survey. After you got that, then on specific functionalities, absolutely do your focus groups, do your market surveys, yes.
So it's actually, you get more data than opinion, right? That's what you're saying. Okay.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Another question that I would like to ask is, you know, since you said you're an entrepreneurship ecosystem builder, developer, sustainer, and helper. Okay. Now, you in the presentation had said that it really helps the funding process, particularly the seed funding and the angel funding process. Okay. Because you're prototyping and you found that, okay, it can succeed, and therefore people can come and fund that portion of it to take it forward to the next level. What's your experience on this, Karina? Have you seen people who have done the prototyping? Have they got funds better, faster, or what's your experience on this?
Yeah, so investors are conservative type. So to convince investors to part with funds is tricky no matter what. But I think if you start involving investors early in your decision-making, if they feel like they are part of the process, it builds a greater it builds the greater involvement in your project.
Okay.
So while it's still difficult, and getting investment is difficult no matter what, you know, people think that they come to United States and money will flow. No, it's difficult. Raising funds is difficult. But if you can have that dialogue that is equipped with data, investors actually prefer it to hypothetical hockey stick that you show on your slides of, you know, your revenue rising, right? So if you can level with investors and say, this is the experiment we're running for the next 2 weeks, but we need funds to build the site, and we'll share the results with you. And if the results are this, then we continue. I think you will get better input from investors, and it will translate into money.
That's great. Though this is answered by you, but then you can add on this. Then the question from Francis Joseph is that how do we differentiate pretotype from prototype?
Right. So, and I had a slide on that. So
Yeah.
Prototype answers questions, can we build it? And the pretotype answers questions, do they want it? Right. So before you build prototype, you need to understand that someone would actually want to use it. And that's the difference. So prototype, you need to spend time and money to build it. With pretotype, think creatively how you can validate it without writing a code,
Okay.
without spending any money.
Right. This is a question from Aubrey Aloysius. He says, we have an education product service in the area of music in B2C segment, which has successfully run over several years on brick and mortar, that is pre-COVID time, and online e-learning mode, post-COVID time. Not post, but during COVID time. Actually, that's what he meant. But though it is mentioned as post-COVID time, I think I lost. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, 1 second, screen. I was reading it and it just
Sure.
it just buzzed off in front of me. Yeah. He says we have an education product, a service in the area of music in the B2C segment, which has successfully run over several years in brick and mortar, that is pre-COVID time, and online and e-learning mode during COVID time. How do we develop a tech-enabled edtech platform using pretotyping? In your opinion, which example is best suitable for us?
Well, without understanding what the product is, it's kind of hard to give the concrete example, but I would suggest doing what Buffer did, creating a web page, a really good web page that would explain what your product does, maybe create multiple pricing categories and see what people will click on. Now with Google Analytics, you can collect so much data just from one website. So either app on a phone or a website, I would maybe suggest going that route. Collect data if people are ready to leave their email addresses, if people are ready to leave money. So just to test that premise, that would validate your product.
All right. Karina, another one, it says, hello ma'am, how is it possible to pretotype of aggregator platform that provides service to customers like Salad?
What kind of platform? Sorry, SR.
He says, asking about the platforms that actually does this pretotyping thing.
Well, again, so I shared different techniques, so it's hard for me to know exactly without understanding the product. What I would suggest, this is just to give them the taste of what pretotyping is, but there are now books, presentations, lectures. Go look into it, read more on it. So what I wanted to convey today is there is a way to test your market without spending time or money.
That's right.
So go look at what are different ways and start thinking creatively how you can pretotype your specific idea, right? So before you build a platform, before you spend time writing code, you know, platform is a big development effort. Test if someone actually needs it.
Karina, are you free to take more questions or you're tired?
I still have a few minutes. I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, okay. It says, I did prototyping my company without knowing it is prototyping. I didn't get much idea on analytics of this, even when I have the idea. Could you suggest any resources to learn more on prototyping analytics?
Yes, so Alberto now released a book this year. It came out earlier this year. You can get it on Amazon or anywhere else. There's an electronic version and the paper version of it. There are prototyping clubs. I know that there are a lot of prototyping happening in Europe and Scandinavia. So you can start your prototyping club at TiE and just think creatively how to do it. It's a movement, right? It's not
Yes.
a prescription, but it's just a different way of thinking. When the agile methodology came to market, it was a different way of thinking how to deploy your product to the market. Prototyping is the same thing. It's just a different way of thinking before you build anything to minimize the risks, because the risks are high, as we all know it. So, yeah.
Johnny Verghese has a question which is a little pensive in nature. How likely the customer who says he's interested in buying the product will become the real customer?
So I found if people go into trouble by clicking and then into trouble of leaving their emails, or even into trouble of giving you $5 for development, they are more likely to actually buy it then, right? People are so inundated with information and product all the time. So I feel like just going to the website, clicking on a product already gives you a lot. And if you can collect any type of data about this customer, their demographic, their level of interest, that anything you can capture helps you in further development of your product or service.
This question is a little, okay, Sandeep wants to know, what are your ideas for prototyping a slightly complex mobile app?
Well, with mobile apps, it's actually now there's so many instruments and so many just ways of testing mobile apps. That becomes easier and easier every day, right? You can use the existing tools to just get people's interest, drive traffic to it, test your ideas, test your buttons, and there are just so many ways of doing it. So I would say with web pages, with mobile apps, you have a lot of instruments for analytics. Use it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sharat Raj has a question which says, what if
maybe
the
two more questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Karina. In fact, you're so kind. Sharat has a question. He says, okay, the question really ran off to my, yeah. What if the customer demand cannot be met during and after the prototyping? Like the customer places orders and we can't fulfill. Won't it adversely affect the product?
What if it cannot be captured?
Yeah, right. You offered something and you couldn't meet that specifications of the offer. That is what he meant.
Well, that's a first indication that you're going in the wrong direction, right? So
Okay,
then
okay.
if you get that, then I would pivot and I would try to figure out why. Is it the wrong premise, or is it the wrong audience? And this is another thing. Know your customer, right? Because you might think that your customer is this, where in fact your customer is that. So Pretotype also lets you figure out if you're preaching to the wrong audience. I'll give you an example. I was working with a company that was doing cancer treatment, and they thought that their audience would be oncologists, but through the series of exercises, it turned out that their audience are radiologists, right? It's like that distinction, but you need to understand it to understand who your customer is.
Right. I'll give you the last question. It is from Siddharth. It says, can prototyping provide the wrong information in that it will tell you that there is a potential market, but not big enough for it to even become a successful business?
Absolutely. Yes, there's always a danger that your market is too small, but prototyping lets you test if there's a market at all. right? So if it's a small market, you can then maybe give more functionality to your product to increase your market, right? But if there is a demand in a small market, that's already a good indication that you're on the right path. Where, you know, companies try big market and there's like no indication at all that this is the right product. So I would say any good indication is good. And then I would try to see how you can increase the market by maybe increasing functionality.
Karina, thank you so very much. And you've taken so many questions and you've gone through the entire gamut of the presentation. It was, and as you rightly said, on a weekend evening, about 50 odd people had come to listen to you. And I'm sure we will have more traction. Even these people who are also heard you, we will try to see whether they can somehow be connected to you to seek your advice or possibilities. Thank you so very much. Have a great day, because your day has only begun, and it's a Friday morning day, right?
Yes, it's Friday morning. The day is ahead of me, but it was such a good start to my day. I want to thank you all. It was fabulous. The questions were great, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you all later. So thank you so much.
So we say this is the new normal during COVID, or the COVID normal called Namaste.
Namaste. Exactly. Thank you all. Thank you, Asar, for organizing this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Absolutely.
Yes. You take care, man.
Bye.
Thank you, Karina.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.